Most stories end the moment a kingdom loses its crown. The empire falls, the glory fades, the book closes. But not this one. Because when the black pharaohs were pushed out of Egypt, they didn't disappear. They reinvented themselves. They built a new power center, forged a new identity, and shaped African history in ways we rarely hear about. Today, we're uncovering the chapter that almost never gets told, how the Kingdom of Kush rose again after Egypt, becoming a resilient superpower that even Rome had to negotiate with. If you watched our last episode on the Black Pharaohs, you already know how Kush conquered Egypt. If you haven't seen it yet, I've linked it right here and in the description. It gives the perfect setup for this story. But don't worry, this video stands completely on its own. Claim number 1. The Kingdom of Kush never recovered after losing Egypt. It's the classic story. Lose your empire, fade into obscurity. For Kush, losing Egypt should have meant losing influence, wealth, and pride. It should have been the end. But walk with me into Meroë, their new capital. Look down. You're not standing on sand, you're standing on mountains of slag, the industrial waste from centuries of iron working. The Kushites didn't just survive, they reinvented themselves. They shifted their political heart to Meroë, a region with abundant woodlands for charcoal and access to iron ore. Over centuries, this new base grew into one of the most active ironworking centers in the ancient world, leaving behind massive slag heaps that still rise from the earth today. Their wealth increasingly came from industries and trade networks rooted in their own land, not from ruling Egypt. This wasn't a decline, it was a transformation. So the verdict? False. Losing Egypt didn't destroy Kush, it pushed them to innovate. Claim number 2. Kush was isolated from the ancient world. Maps make it look like a lonely desert kingdom far from global influence. But step inside a royal tomb at Meroë and you will find something unexpected. Roman glassware, objects from India, luxury goods from across the Mediterranean. Kush was plugged into a vast trade network that linked Africa with Arabia, the Mediterranean and beyond. Their gold, ivory, iron, ebony, and exotic animals flowed north and east, and in return came foreign goods, ideas, and technologies. So Kush wasn't cut off from the world, unless cut off means owning Roman glassware, Indian beads, and Mediterranean luxury goods. Therefore, the verdict is false. Kush wasn't isolated. It was a crossroads, one of Africa's great connectors. Claim number 3. Kush was ruled only by kings. We often imagine a line of male rulers, each one a carbon copy of the pharaohs. But what truly sets Kush apart is its striking power structure, the rise of the Kandake, which means queen mother, and is where the name Candace originates. These royal women held real political authority, sometimes ruling alongside kings and sometimes in their own right. The most renowned, Amani-Renas, led Kush during its clash with Rome in the 1st century BCE. Ancient sources describe her as a fierce, one-eyed queen who resisted Roman expansion and secured a treaty that protected Kush's independence. Kushite forces even carried away statues of Emperor Augustus, a bold symbol that Rome would not easily dominate Nubia. So the verdict is false. Kush's political model was unique, complex, and far more gender balanced than Egypt, Greece, or Rome. Claim number 4. Kush fell in a sudden collapse. We love dramatic endings, a battlefield, a conqueror, a single moment when the lights go out. But the real story is slower and more human. Kush didn't fall to one invader or one disaster. Trade routes shifted, coastal powers rose, centuries of iron production may have strained the environment, and bit by bit, economic gravity pulled elsewhere. Kush didn't vanish, it evolved. New Nubian kingdoms emerged, carrying their culture, language, and traditions forward for centuries. Kush didn't end suddenly. If anything, it had the historical equivalent of a long goodbye, the kind WhatsApp would tag as typing for about 150 years. So the verdict is false. Kush didn't collapse, it transformed and lived on under new names and new forms. Claim number 5. Kushite armies permanently expelled the Romans from Africa. This is a powerful and proud claim you will sometimes hear, suggesting Kush achieved a total military victory that reshaped the continent. But let's define the timeline. The Kushites under the brilliant Kandaki Amani reigners did indeed win a monumental war against Rome around 27 to 22 BCE. They attacked Roman forts in what is now Egypt, and when the Romans counterattacked, they fought them to a brutal stalemate. The result wasn't a Roman expulsion from Africa, but something arguably more impressive, a negotiated peace treaty. The Romans, the greatest military power on earth, agreed to a favorable deal for Kush, withdrawing their border and eliminating a tax requirement. It was a diplomatic masterstroke that secured centuries of independence. Rome expected an easy win, but Kush responded with the diplomatic version of, "Sit down, let's talk, but drop the attitude." So the claim that the Kushite armies permanently expelled Romans from Africa is an exaggeration of a deeper truth. Kush didn't drive Rome from the continent, but it did hand them a decisive strategic defeat and secured its own sovereignty against an overwhelming force, a victory worth celebrating on its own accurate terms. Claim number 6. The Kingdom of Kush was the primary origin of all Egyptian civilization. This claim, born from a desire to affirm Africa's central role, posits Kush as the direct, singular ancestor of pharaonic culture. But the archaeological records show a more complex and in many ways more interesting relationship. Kush and Egypt influenced each other for millennia in a dynamic dialogue across their shared border. For example, the earliest pharaonic traditions of kingship show strong Nubian cultural influences, but they coalesced in Egypt itself. Later, as we've seen, Kush would profoundly re-influence Egypt during the 25th dynasty. It's less Egypt copied Kush and more two brilliant neighbors who keep borrowing each other's cultural sugar. So the claim that the Kingdom of Kush was the primary origin of all Egyptian civilization is an oversimplification. It's more accurate to say Kush was a pair and a rival, a foundational part of the Nile Valley civilization from the very beginning. It was not merely a pupil, but often a partner, and sometimes a teacher in its own right, woven into the very fabric of the region's history. So the story of Kush is more than a forgotten chapter. It's a masterclass in resilience. This was an empire that lost the crown and forged a new one from iron, strategy, and sheer will. A kingdom that traded with the world, fought Rome to a standstill, and elevated powerful queens. And in reclaiming its story, we don't need to exaggerate. The pure, verified truth is staggering enough. The lie was never that Kush was insignificant. The lie was that its significance could be ignored. Understanding that difference doesn't just change history, it changes how we understand power, persistence, and Africa's undeniable place at the heart of the ancient world. Every episode is a new chance to test what you know and, of course, rethink what you thought you knew. Be sure to like, subscribe, and come back next time where we test your knowledge on something entirely different.